probably a bit more something that you would be a bit more of an expert than I am. But we'll look at some of this Moana Pasifika stuff. So, Kevin Senior, sort of a good friend of both of ours and a good friend of the pod. He was on the breakdown, I think, last week, and he's the new general manager, I think, of Moana Pasifika, and he outlined a couple of key points. So, some of those key points, the team's going to be based out of South Auckland and play primarily out of Mount Smart. I'm just reading this off the page. The squad will have no more than 20% non-Pacific Island eligible players. The other 80% are Pacific Island declared or neutral, and players will be contracted to Moana Pasifika and not the New Zealand Rugby Union. So, what did you make of any of those new developments of what Kevy had to say? Did you make much of that?
Look, I think in the larger scheme of things, there shouldn't be any surprises by any parties who follow Moana Pasifika or any parties who are pro-New Zealand rugby. The 20% thing, I'm of the stance that, of course, there was going to be something like a 20% thing, because New Zealand rugby was so involved with, the selection, the whole positioning of Moana Pasifika. So of course they'll have, for lack of a better word, an agenda like 20% that they can, grab from. To be honest, this has the makings of a shit show, and that's got nothing to do. That comment has nothing to do with Moana Pasifika. It's more along the how Moana Pasifika came to be, given the influence of New Zealand rugby and its counterparts, and people that are involved with New Zealand rugby as an organisation. I can see accusations of stealing players going both ways, given how many of the Tonga and Samoan national team are New Zealand born. The Blues player and fan base could be stripped out of making both teams unsustainable. So for me, as a rugby fan, and a Polynesian rugby fan, a Pasifika rugby fan, I'm all for, the rugby that Moana Pasifika is going to bring. However, I'm of the same notion of Ken Laban, who I watched on that same show that Kevy was on. Ken had a concern that he indicated, which was, we have players who were selected for Super Rugby Aotearoa this season who could have, if they wanted to, make themselves available for Moana Pasifika, but have been hamstrung because they've been selected in teams like the Hurricanes. For instance, just as an example, you've got Asafo Aumua, who is a decent hooker, and he would probably start for Moana Pasifika if he wanted to play for them. He's been hamstrung because Dane Coles has now re-signed with Hurricanes in New Zealand Rugby. So that kind of leaves him stuck in limbo. There's also the talent that is Vaya Fifita, who comes from the same team, same region. He's been hamstrung as well. He's in nowhere land at the moment. He can't even put his hand up if he wanted to play for Moana Pasifika. So there's players like that who Moana Pasifika just simply can't choose from if they wanted to, but should have access to, in my eyes anyway, as a fan. I think they should have access to these types of players, but, there are a lot of roadblocks that hold them back from being selected. That's my take on it anyway.
Yeah, no, a lot good points there. I'm curious, where the players are going to come from for the reasons you mentioned as well, because the team wants to be competitive as well. You don't want to come in and there's the Sunwolves and they're getting smashed every week, or some of these other startup teams. The Rebels were getting creamed for a while, and so were the Force. And we saw the Force ended up. This is Ken Laban's point again. Super Rugby sort of had enough of the Force getting wasted every week, so they weren't prepared to hang around with them. And then they got they got kicked out for a bit, and same as the Sunwolves, that sort of they were getting smoked by 50, and then they don't want to hang around with them anymore. So if Moana Pasifika has to come in and be competitive, it's the Olmoas and the Fafitas and these types of players who will be valuable to them, who aren't getting big game time. So yeah, I'm curious who they're going to get. The way they said the other 80%, so it's Pacific Island declared or neutral. So I think that's another way of getting more guys in. So that's guys like, say, like TJ Faiani, for instance, is a good example of someone who falls in that neutral category. Or he could be eligible for Pacific Islander stuff. They were to grab someone like him. But if he carved up, then the All Blacks would take him anyway, even though he'd probably fall in that 80%. So I do think that the fact that they've added the PI declared or neutral sort of gives them another way of bending the rules to get a couple more guys in. The New Zealand Rugby guys, New Zealand Rugby Union, I'm talking about. Mm.